Everyone, welcome. Everyone online, writers, readers, drinkers, lend me your ears and your livers. Welcome to Writers Drinking Whiskey Open Bar, the only author panel where everybody knows your name and we will always respond to your query letters. Quick announcement today, we'll keep it short, is anyone on the chat, if you join us, chat anything on there, I put my email on there, send me a note and we will happily send you out an ebook. So go on, participate, and you will get something free for your troubles. I'm not sure what that makes you per hour earnings, but it's with tariffs and inflation, it's probably not a whole lot. So, anyways, let's get to meeting everyone here. And as I like to do, so I already have the bios and the description. So anyone tuning in, you can go down and see who everyone is here. For the panel, I actually do have your names up with your faces, on there, so everyone will be able to kind of link you up. But I like to have a little fun with the introductions, because this show is a labor of fun. And I found this interesting kind of morbid fact the other day, in fact, from the Morbid Facts YouTube channel, where it said that English author Aldous Huxley? Someone correct me. Okay. I always think I'm saying his first name wrong. The final thing he ever wrote was a request to his wife on his bedside. So he was dying of, laryngeal cancer of the throat, or the, throat area at least. He's completely mute, and he requested to be injected with 100 milligrams of LSD. He died 2 hours later, probably tripping balls at that point. But my question for the panel is, you're mute, you're on your deathbed, and you have one final request to make. What are you writing on that note? So, and maybe Janice, since you haven't been with us for a while, let's start with you.
Oh my goodness. Oh, put me on the spot here. I have absolutely no idea. On my deathbed, final request. My goodness. I don't know. I honestly couldn't even tell you on that. I think it would depend on if I was in pain and feeling bad, I'd probably want something to not make me feel bad. I can see maybe requesting, a cuddle with my husband or my kitty cats or both, or something to make, I feel it'd probably be something to comfort me. At that time, and me and my loved ones. I mean, that's a sappy answer, but yeah, I mean, I'd like to say something crazy like, give me drugs, give me chocolate, do something wild and crazy, but I don't think I'd be wild and crazy at that moment. Right. I think I'd be pretty boring.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure how many people. I think Huxley there nailed it with the LSD. That's a great final request.
That you really can't. No.
I was like, you have to think. You'd be thinking ahead of time. That's why I was like, I need to start thinking about this in case I'm in a similar situation. Diane, you have what would your final request be?
Well, I'm Jewish, so my final request would be forgive me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We're guilty, so forgive me for whatever it might be. I probably did it. Forgive me.
Amen. I know it's probably a good time to get that blanket forgiveness, because if you ask in life, they're just right? Too much. People are going to start running down the list. And you don't
There's
want
an
to hear
Irish
the list.
joke about that, but it's a long one.
Very good. And Daria, what about you?
Can I have two?
Of course. As much as you want.
So I want a large plate of pasta.
Okay.
And a huge shot of morphine.
Very good.
I think it was mescaline with Huxley, by the way. I've always read it was mescaline, but maybe someone's updated it.
Maybe. And and my internet sources are a YouTube channel called Morbid Facts that popped up on my my timeline, a little short, and I was like, what's this about Huxley? And so I'm taking that as gospel, and it's not exactly, I didn't exactly vet that for primary source, so.
Well, if it was on the internet, it must be right.
Absolutely. We're on the internet now. I mean, that
exactly.
Everything we say is gospel, so. Very good. Thanks everybody for that. So very cool. So we can go ahead and get rolling. So I was excited about today. One of the things I thought would be fun to start branching into here is we've done a lot of discussion on just writing topics, right? Like kind of the craft and some lifestyle kind of things. I would say craft and lifestyle, mainly. But I thought, it was about time we started talking a little bit more about industry, things too, kind of what's popping up, what's new, what's kind of our experiences, things of that nature. So to kind of facilitate that, I thought it actually might be fun. This is a tad inverted from what I sent in the email, all still the same stuff, but instead of starting with what's new, maybe what's kind of coming here in the last. And as I wrote this morning, I was horrified because I realized I was going to say the last half of the year, realizing like we are damn near the second half of the year already, and that's terrifying. But before we hit there, I thought it actually might be fun to kind of go back with just kind of looking back at where everyone's been. And this was I was really excited actually to get all of you, because I think it's in the room here in the library, as it were, on the YouTube box. There's a really large swath of different experiences. So maybe I think what we could go around is just talk about, because I know, Dario, you had Panverse, Janice, I know you do indie and you do traditional publishing. Diane, you had the traditional publishing experience, and now the query lettering experience that we had emailed with a little bit about recently. And so maybe we just kind of start with kind of an overview of kind of where everyone's been, and then and leading up till now, like kind of where that's led to. So and anyone wants to start, you can jump in and have a go.
Mine's probably the easiest,
Okay.
so I can be glad to
Very
go
good.
first. I've had 5 books published, with 2 with Random House, 3 with HarperCollins, all literary fiction, which is just a miscellaneous bucket, meaning each of those books is different in subject matter than the others.
Mm-hmm.
I had an agent for the 5 books. And then I fired her, and that was about, almost a dozen years ago. And I've since completed 2 novels kind of simultaneously. It was a strange experience in that I worked on both of them kind of at the same time, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody. But now I'm looking for an agent. And you would think, I had thought, being naive still after all this time, that it would be easy to find an agent with 5 traditionally published book. But no, it's been
Sure.
probably a year at least. Well, it's really been longer. It's been maybe a year and a half. I'm trying to find somebody to represent these 2 books that I've now finished. One's about a Holocaust survivor, and the other is a Western featuring a Black slave woman in 1862. And I cannot find an agent for love or money. And it's been a very humbling experience. I can certainly go into it more later if we get onto the whole agent and trying to find publishers without one. But it's quite a different experience than I expected. And so right now I'm still kind of back to square one again, and I feel like I've accomplished nothing that seems to be of any relevance to representation. So that's where I am right now.
Right, sure. Thank you for that. Well, and I think that, not that you need me to say it exactly, but because I'm here, I'm going to say it. It's not like you haven't accomplished anything, right? I think it's easy, and I get it, because I've certainly felt that way too. It's easy to feel like you haven't accomplished anything. The act of writing those 5 books and now these 2 more is the big thing anyways. That's the biggest thing to accomplish.
Well, that's
and
the
then,
fun part.
Yeah.
That's the reason we do it. All of the business end of things can be so vexing and frustrating. So that's kind of the layer of what we have to do versus what we want to do. Anyway, so that's my experience to date.
Sure. Thank you for that. Dario, you want to take us from there?
Yeah, I wrote my first book, which was actually a non-fiction memoir, in 2009. I'd been mucking around with writing since the turn of the millennium. And I did get agented, had an agent who loved it. She couldn't place it because it was too long and didn't quite target the conventions of the genre. So after a year, we parted company amicably, and I already had I had set up a micropress publishing print on demand. I published 3 science fiction anthologies, Panverse 1, 2, and 3. And so I had some experience in self-publishing or in indie publishing. I published it myself. It happened to be pretty successful. It sold over 10,000 copies to date and been translated once. And it's been downhill ever since. I wrote 2 novels, which, were well reviewed and appreciated, but didn't sell terribly well. They, small stuff. Anyway, I'm fully indie. I'm very disillusioned with traditional publishing for a number of reasons. Diane's story, not least. I've read both of Diane's books and they're exceptional. And 20 or 30 years ago, she'd have been published without a hiccup and looking at huge advances. I think the industry is very broken. I know a lot of traditionally published writers, especially mid-listers, are now getting their rights back occasionally and going indie. So they're doing a hybrid model. I think that's probably the future. Anyway, I'm sure we'll talk about the industry more later. I work as a freelance editor and I work mostly with indies, 1 or 2 traditionally published authors as well. So I see both sides of it.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. Janice, you want to take us from there?
Yeah, I probably do a little bit of everything, it seems, at this point. I had a middle grade trilogy that I sold to Harper, or Balzer and Bray HarperCollins, one of their imprints, back in 2008, 2009. So I have the traditional there, and then I kind of shifted and did some stuff, and shifted over for a little while and did some indie nonfiction where I wrote the writing books, and I have 7 or 8 writing books. I forget. I should know this, but I don't remember. So I did all that because I have, my blog and the writing, and I have the whole nonfiction teaching writing thing, which is probably what I'm more known for than the fiction. A lot of times it's like I do fiction too.
Sure.
I had that, and then for fun, I wrote and indie published an urban fantasy for adults, just kind of a passion project. And then this past January, I published 2 work for hire chapter books for Learner Publishing, which was kind of something I kind of backed into. It was just, just an opportunity that came across my lap and said, yeah, I've always wanted to write a chapter book. Let's try this. And they're ghost stories, and they were a lot of fun to write. That was there. I do have agents. I had one agent for a very, very long time, and then we kind of realized that what she liked to read went this way towards the literary, and what I like to write is more towards the commercial, and we just weren't a good fit anymore. So we parted ways very amicably. We just weren't on the same page, and it's a business arrangement. Didn't have, was working on a science fiction adult novel and a middle grade fantasy novel, and was planning on querying my middle grade fantasy novel to a particular agent who I knew she was my original agent's assistant when I first started, and she in the time being had gone out to become an agent herself. And we just kind of happened to be visiting her last year in Colorado where she lives, and she asked, oh, what are you working on? And I wasn't planning on talking shop. This was just a friendly visit. But when an agent asks you that, you answer honestly. And next thing I knew, she was very interested in the sci-fi, so I have a new agent. So I know Diane is probably like about that. But it was one of those. I had a 15-year relationship with my new agent, and we had known each other for a very long time, and she's familiar with my work and everything. So I think that that's just one of those unusual situations. Like, wasn't expecting it. So I'm very, and that was last year. So I'm in revision hell with 2 separate books. So I totally get Diane. I would not recommend that either.
No.
Working on that stuff. But so yeah, I kind of touched on a little bit of everything, and I totally assumed I was going to go indie with the sci-fi adult project because sci-fi is difficult to sell, and it's tough, and I know that the odds are really hard for that. But with middle grade novel, with Kidlit, you really need to go traditional because the gatekeepers in the schools. So I kind of approach it as, what book do I have? What's the best chance for it to do? What can I do with it? And I kind of approach everything on a project by project basis.
Right.
That's kind of how I work.
Yeah, very good.
So I'm not quite as disillusioned as everybody else. I'm still hopefully optimistic, but I do know that there's a lot of challenges and a lot of, I'm not an idiot about the challenges and the problems in traditional publishing, and it's definitely a really difficult, hard way to make a living, and it is definitely can be soul crushing, and it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, amen. Thank you for that. It's funny because you say that, and I'm so happy you got everyone's experience. So my experience here is like the first novel I wrote. So I had published, a bunch of short stories. I've since kind of stopped, submitting them out to magazines and things. And I just collect them, and when I have enough to make another book, I'll make another book, with them. But I published lots of short stories, different, the university presses, all these places that does short stories. And then I published my first novel that went under the title The Hordes of Torment at the time. And with a kind of a mid, not a small publisher, but not like one of the big guys either, right? Kind of a mid publisher. And things seemed to have gone fine. And then, and I got some paychecks and things, and that was all fun. And then suddenly they just went off the map. And the book, when it came to me, had a bunch of typos in it. One which was on the first page. This is actually how I met Dario here. There was a quotation mark in the first, not the first page, the first paragraph. That should have been over here, and was over here instead. And I'm horrified because I've edited this thing to like Kingdom Come, right? And I had just overlooked it all those times, and once it was in a different format, I saw it right away. It was in print book format right away. My eyes went to it. But all that time, looking at Word docs printed or Word on my computer, I never saw it. And was horrified and tried to get with them. And then that became this spiral down to like them not, and actually I met a bunch of their authors who had never gotten any paychecks. And they're like, I know I sold books. People have my books and they're showing me, and they never got paid for it. And I ended up deciding like, okay. And actually one guy was a lawyer, and he sued them, got his rights back, put me in contact with his lawyer, who told me I could do it for $5,000 and I could go get my rights back. And I'm like, I want to throw $5,000 at something. So I actually looked at the contract myself and was able to go, look, it says if you don't earn anything over a 2-year span, you can request your rights back. And so that's what I did. I was like, and they just hadn't paid me. I have no idea if I earned anything or not, but I hadn't been paid in 2 years. So I went back and went, hey, I've talked to your other authors too. This was kind of I was nice. So it wasn't a good experience, but also was like, no, I know you guys, like in a nice way. I know you guys aren't like living up to your end of the bargain. And they gave me the rights back, and I was like, okay, you know what? All I want to do, I just want this work to be as good as it can be. Like, it's going to be so hard now to try to shop this to another publisher or something. Right. I just want to produce it and have it be like the real expression of the art, what I was going for. And so that's how I ended up getting with Dario. Was like, I want someone to edit this because I don't trust myself now after seeing this, like this quotation mark. And so then I wrote, and I completely get the comment about length, right? Is that I decided, I have no idea why I decided this, but I just decided I had to write this book, Pirates of Appalachia, and I had to write this book before I died. And it's an epic absurdist satire, and it is 230-ish thousand words long at the conclusion of it. And I'm like, I don't even know like how, and I'm probably going to split it into 2 books, because it was always written pretty much in that capacity that it could be 1 book, and then it's the same story, but everything kind of comes to all the first storylines kind of wrap up, and that's really leading into the end game. So it works, but then when I was trying to query for that, it's like I realized just going through that, like as you look through the querying process, and I really think the best way is probably how you went, Janice, which is if you actually know someone, when you actually can talk with an agent. I do have a few I could reach out to. I just didn't want to go into the reaching out to the folks I know route, but yeah, you go through, and it's like that querying process is very soul crushing. I mean,
it's horrible. It's horrible. and because each agent, forgive me, Bill, I'm sort of branching out here, but
No.
each agent wants different things and in different formats. Some of them go through Query Tracker, and some of them want emails, and some of them want synopses. And so not only is it soul crushing, but it's time consuming.
Right.
And
And that's not even just like that. It's not just like one agency, right? Like an agency can have 12 agents that all have different, like, desires for it.
The only good thing I can think of to say about that is that at least you can do these simultaneously. In the old days, it was one at a time.
Right.
And so you do this very elaborate query, whatever the tailored to what they want. And then it's 3 months, and which I'm bitter about, because the agents that I've gone through, and they've all been recommended to me by my editors. So I had contacts and recommendations. And the deal is, if you haven't heard back from them by 3 months, you're not going to hear back. They're just not interested. And talk about frustrating. Do you know how much time that takes? Right. So yes, you can do a tranche of 8 or 10 at a time, which is what I did. But good Lord. And that's why when I was trying to figure out how long it's been that I've been on this merry-go-round, I think it's been 1.5 years.
Well, especially when sorry, Karen. No, I mean, especially when you're someone with a track record. I mean, you've got a solid track record. Some of your books did very, very well. Bill has some literary credits. He's been in several literary publications. He's got what was it? The collection got a starred review from Publishers Weekly.
From yes, I mean, Without Expiration got a Kirkus star in a. It was one of the best books of 2020. Kirkus named it.
Right.
And then an American Fiction Award, right? And then so it's like I think my Fire for Christmas, my satire actually got 2 American Fiction Awards and an International Book Award. And it's never enough.
You should get immediate attention from an agent. You should be at the head of the line.
One of my books sold 110,000 copies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well.
Right.
Stay tuned. I mean, it's just so you have to decide where your tolerance level is and have a plan B. At least that's what I'm grappling with. How much time am I willing to invest in this before I make another plan?
Right. Well, I loved what Janice had said though about and I think when I look at the current landscape with AI and Amazon publishing and just everything, right? There's so much, right? There's so much noise, but there's also so much different routes you can go. That it really is, I think, starting to really figure out what is the route that is best for you generally, and then also maybe that story.
That's the Janice that I haven't.
And also, I think what you want, like Dario and I have had many a conversation about this. Dario and I are really funny because we so agree on what makes a good story and how's a good story and what you ought to your goals and things you should aim for, and we have such completely diametrically opposed ideas of how to get there, and we're very much like that, and we've known each other for a really long time, so it's really funny. And also we have a lot of the separate things on publishing and everything too. But I think that one of those things is that right now, he is the type of person that he likes the control. I'm speaking for Dario here, let me say that. But from what I have learned is I know it's also what do you want from what you're doing? I always wanted, I wanted to go traditional. I wanted that validation. Not as much as I do now because I've had it once and I've learned to, you have to make sure, validate yourself within, you don't always want external validation. Mm-hmm. But there were things that I wanted, and I wanted I wanted the publisher to handle, and I wanted certain things, and he was very much where he wanted the control. He wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he wanted to do things a little different. And with him, not being happy about certain things, and me not being happy about certain things. So I also think it depends on what you as an author and what you as a person want from your career. Because I know that there's decisions that I have made now after being in it after 15 years that I certainly would not have made at the beginning, because my goals and my views and my things, and now that I've been through it, I go, okay, now I know what I want from my career as a writer now. which was very, very different from what I wanted as a brand new writer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure Dario can probably expand on this even more at some point. But so that is definitely something that you can take into consideration when you're thinking about where you're going to go. Because as awful as a lot of it is, if you look at it, there are so many more avenues and options and opportunities for writers now that I mean, before, if you couldn't get published, that was it. You were done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Unbelievable careers.
Yeah.
Absolutely all on your own, under your control and on your terms. And so there's a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot of heartache too.
Right.
But we definitely have a lot more control over our careers as writers than we used to. And sometimes I think it's important to think about that so you don't get into the doom spiral.
Oh,
And
sure.
I have to do that for myself too, because I mean I'm like every other writer. I get my work sucks. No one ever's going to buy my book again. We all have those moments.
Right.
But yeah, I think sometimes it's really important to think about the positives, not just the negatives. Otherwise,
That's true, and I think one really positive thing I'm seeing right now, just recently, is the emergence of a royalty share model in traditional publishing, especially with some smaller and mid-sized presses, where instead of getting an advance, they give the author a very large share of the royalty instead, based entirely on sales. And I think that's good because if you do, especially as a debut author, or even a mid-lister, get a traditional publishing deal, that advance is kind of a poison pill because you can maybe get an advance based on selling 3,000 copies. And if you undershoot that, which may well be because of circumstance outside your control, like the publisher not putting any dollars behind you, or a publicist or anything like that, then your next deal is going to be smaller. You're going to get dinged on the Nielsen ratings, and you'll find it harder to publish your next book.
Oh, I have a horror story about that. My career started at the top, and I'm heading straight for the bottom. For my first advance, I got a 6-figure advance for a 2-book contract. I mean, it was an enormous amount of money for a debut novel. And of course, I thought, this is great. They love me. Everything I write from this point on is going to be just as good, and my advance will be even bigger. Well, it profoundly undersold for a number of reasons, but it failed to perform. And the second book was even more of a dismal failure sales-wise. They were reviewed well, but they didn't sell. And so my publisher was Random House and turned their back on me completely. That was it. I was done. And I don't think till the day I die, I'm going to begin to earn back for them what that royalty was. And so each book from after those two, the advance has been smaller and smaller and smaller, and hence the pyramid. I started with the most money and have steadily been working toward the bottom ever since. And so if you are a writer who continues to produce, especially, the advance is less important, I think, than getting cash flow. So if you look at it from strictly a business standpoint, that new model that Dario was describing really is preferable because you don't have to earn back the advance. For me, I never saw diamond royalties for those first 2 books because I never earned the advance back for the publisher. So I was in a royalties desert, and my tiny advances from they weren't that tiny, but they were small advances from HarperCollins, I actually saw royalties from, because the advance was small enough and the sales were hefty enough that it actually was in a better business decision or performance because I actually got royalty checks from it. So there are a whole bunch of different ways of looking at it. What the best deal might be for your particular circumstances.
Right. Amen. Well, and there is that, and I've heard people say it, and I don't completely agree with this, but I understand the sentiment behind it, is that there's a lot of writers that are doing extremely well in the indie space. And they're actually the ones that say, it's traditional publishing is the vanity press now. It used to be self-publishing, and now people go to indie publishing. More, I think, and that's why I don't agree with it just being vanity, because I think it can be that validation of it, which I think can be very important. especially starting your career. And then also, it's if you don't want to be the entrepreneurial author, right? It's I just want to write things and I want to pass it along. So I don't think that's a vanity thing so much, right? But I think the sentiment is there is that really I think unless you're the Stephen Kings or J.K. Rowling's or those stratospheric kind of writers that have already kind of left the orbit a long time ago, the earning power is probably more in indie. If you really get that going well, you'll make more. But you have a lot more things, and you also have a cottage industry that has built up around selling you things.
Yep.
Right. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to go indie, well, sure, you need a book cover, you need to format the book, etc. But then also how you market it, how you do this, and there's so much now that where you're producing the product, but in actuality, in that marketplace, you're the product. You're the they're earning off you, and that can be a really difficult, especially when you're just getting started. Placing it.
Dario and I have talked about this a lot because we both feel differently about it. And I feel for me, until I really exhaust all the avenues I can think of, traditional publishing is better for me because I'm lazy. I don't want to do all the marketing. I don't want to have control over all of it. I'm more than happy to turn it over to a sales department. In traditional publishing, Janice, maybe your experience is different, but mine is that you get 30 to 60 days. Well, you get 30 days of publicity and marketing support. And then the publisher's pretty much done with you. If your book is doing really well, you may get an additional 30 days. After that, you're on your own anyway. And then you have to decide if you're going to hire a publicist or do it all yourself. But the idea of having a market, having to do all of the business end of things and the self-promotion, which I just suck at, is so discouraging to me that it's really a matter of laziness in the end, or lack of willingness. I don't think it's laziness, but lack of willingness to take on that hard work to make a book actually be read by anybody other than my friends and family. So I'm holding out, but I don't know. There will be a point if I can't figure this out, when I may have to go the indie route or decide to just put the books away forever, which I doubt I'm willing to do.
Yeah, and that's really tough because with me it was definitely odd because my traditionally published books are children's books, which have a whole different beast. And a lot of times the publishers will certainly support your children's books more, middle grade, even YA. They'll support that more because they know that it takes longer to go through all the gatekeepers. So there was a little bit more support on them, but in like a lot of books, you get a lot of support for the first book, and then unless the book doesn't do real well, it doesn't break out in the first book, you don't necessarily get a lot of support on the second and third books, or the later books. I hear that from a lot of people, and I'm sure you have people who have opposite experiences. I'm sure it varies a lot.
Sure.
But so it was definitely one of those things that was very, very different because like with children's books, you're not marketing to the actual reader. So there's a whole different level, like all the stuff that I know, but for marketing my indie nonfiction, marketing the fiction is a completely different beast. And marketing the adult stuff is completely different from marketing the kid stuff, because with kid stuff, you have to go after libraries and teachers and this. You can't actually access the reader,
Right.
which is a very weird thing. So there's like, depending on what you do in your genre and you market, and even with indie stuff, it's really genre and market dependent. Because I can remember years ago having a conversation with my previous agent and talking about, and that was when indie was really taking off, and like Harlequin and RWA were like really embracing indie authors. Not Harlequin, RWA was embracing the indie authors, and like they're going in ebooks. This is where things are going, and I can remember my agent saying, like I won't even take romance clients anymore because they can do better without me. Like romance writers, they didn't need agents, they didn't need publishers because it's the highest selling market out there, or genre out there. And like they didn't need it. So I think there's certain genres that if you write in that genre and you've got a really strong, solid, you can do really, really well as an indie. And then there's certain, like literary is probably one of those things that's like kid lit. You kind of need to have a publisher, because you're not going, you don't have the readership that's just going on to Amazon and looking for books. Kind of thing. So I think it's definitely, there are a lot of variables as to whether or not indie is a viable option for you versus beyond just personal taste.
Janice, a question, because I know you're very in touch with the publishing industry. I believe there are some, and I'm thinking of Diane here too, I believe there are some smaller and mid-sized presses that you can approach directly and submit directly to, and you don't have to be agented. I guess the problem is, identifying the reputable ones and the ones that are going to work for you.
Definitely. And you probably things like Predator and Editors is still out there, and you've got those, and if you do the research, but again, it's a lot of work, so you've got to do the research and look at it. But there's definitely a lot, and like you were talking about the different publishing models, and there's a lot of people trying new things and different things. So I mean, there are definitely options out there, and it comes down to what do you want. So a lot of times those smaller publishers, you can approach them directly, but some of the negatives of that is that they have smaller lists, so they may only have 14 books a year or something. So there's a lot more competition for some of those, versus you may have a traditional publisher, or like one of the big five or something. You may have hundreds of books that go out in a year. So but it scales up because more people are submitting to them. So I guess when you're looking at on a ratio, it may be the same ratios, of what kind of books are in there. But then it's also, there's a difference between money and royalties and those kind of things. So there's a lot to consider, a lot of stuff in there. But there's a lot of options. You've got tiny little small presses like Panverse used to be, and then you've got big giant presses and everything in between. And then you can do it yourself, or you've even got a lot of authors that are going out now. I see this a lot in romance. I'm sure other people have done it, but most of your big savvy indie authors tend to be romance or authors. Like they're the ones who are really turning it into these really profitable small businesses. So you'll see where you've got co-op might not be the right word. You did that with the Made in LA, didn't you, Dario, where you had the whole group? There's like a co-op where you've got multiple authors who all kind of join together and create their own publishing house, and they all support each other's work, and it's just they publish their work, and everybody, it's like a group, and like maybe some person has a lot of design experience, and they work on doing covers, and somebody else is really good with marketing, and they handle a lot of marketing.
Right.
So the duties. And they work as a team, and they work as their own small micro press to support each other. And usually it's similar genres and similar markets, so they're approaching the same audiences and stuff. And you even see authors and groups of authors that are doing that too, which could be really beneficial for a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot.
I think it's really exciting because there's so much, like, it's like you can look at it. It really is like we live in interesting times because you can really look at it and go, okay, look, traditional publishing, I don't think it's dead. I think it's been marginalized, though. And I think if you try to say it's not marginalized at this point, it's kind of silly, especially with the stats that have come out with the number of sales and things and what they do. But it depends on how you look at it, right? And then you can also look at it as in there's like a new genre now. Like it's funny, Dario, you had emailed me, I think yesterday or the day before. I just got around to getting back to it today. But I'm gonna have an author on the show that does lit RPG, which is like literature with the RPG where you level the characters up and things. And that's a whole genre, and it has subgenres. And it sells really well, and it's this whole new thing that's sprung up through. I think that's 90% indie. But then I was hearing a guy saying that it's Royal Road. It's one where you can serialize your work online. It's very fantasy focused, but there's actually publishers now that wait to see and who's doing really well on that. And then they reach out to them and then give them publishing deals to come on and do more revenue sharing, but then get a print book, and maybe the ebook, but I mean, ebooks are fairly simple. But so there's actually tons of avenues, right? If you look at it, I look at it as if you. It's like all I want to do is be on the CBS morning news, right? That was 20 years ago, that would have been so rad, like it would have been like so awesome doing the CBS morning news. And now if you're on the CBS morning news, you may get less views than just being on like a bigger YouTube channel. In fact, if you're on Joe Rogan or you're on one of these bigger podcasts, you're going to get way more than you do on the CBS morning news. Is that new media that's been around for a while now, but that new media is just as big. Well, not even just as big, it's bigger now. And so kind of figuring out what works for you. Book
I was
talk,
just
yeah,
gonna say,
exactly.
There's book talk. Yeah, it's the thing. Although I was reading, and I do not remember where I read this. So maybe somebody who knows and put in the comments or something at some point. But I was reading somewhere that they're saying that despite the incredible influence in some of these book talkers will go out and they'll do the books, that it's almost like it's not that there's a lot of readers on there. It's not that the readers are fans of the books, it's that the readers are fan of the TikToker. And that they have noticed that that the books recommended, though that one book can sell like crazy, but it doesn't always translate to additional sales to the other authors' books, because the person is buying the book the TikToker recommended. They not necessarily are after the author. Right. So some people, like you've got like Rebecca Yarros, who's just whoosh, taken off with the stuff. Yeah, I think I was reading today her like the top 5 best-selling books in the country right now. The first 3 are her series. So like she's doing incredible, and I know with Fourth Wing got real launched off of TikTok and everything. It's a great book. I mean, I can't do it. I enjoyed it a great deal. It's fun stuff. But like, and with her, she's probably a little different because it's there. But like, there's some people that saying, yeah, their book did really well on TikTok, but they noticed there wasn't a lift on the rest of their books.
Right. Well, there are a couple things that have changed so much about publishing and indie publishing, especially, and one is books on demands. Because I'm old enough to remember when there was so-called vanity presses and you had 5,000 copies of your book in your garage and it was up to you to deal with it. The other thing, so books on demand, financially has given an avenue for people to publish that they, would have had to sink a lot more money into before. Right. The other thing is social media. You can reach out. I mean, when my best-selling book, the title of my books that sold the best, I paid more to my publicist than I made on the book in the end, because there were very classic means of publicizing, library talks and book groups and book tour, but now there are bloggers and there's TikTok and there's Facebook and there's so many other ways to reach out to readers that didn't exist 20 years ago when my first books came out, and it's changed the whole landscape of what's possible. The other thing, too, that I'm noticing, and Janice, you just reminded me of it, is that series are the big thing. And I said all my books are unrelated. That's not true. 2 of them are very loosely connected, the so-called series. And I got paid more in my advance if I wrote a second book to that best-selling book. If it had been a totally different book, unrelated to any of my others, I would have made much less money in my advance. So series are really a nifty business strategy, because if one of the books does really well, then you've got a built-in reader base for the next ones. At least. Sure.
Well, it can also be we lost her again. I'll bring her back on, but it can also be a bit of she's not there. Okay, I'll bring her back on to let her finish. But I think going to the series, there's just the counterpoint is, if you start to write a series and the first book doesn't sell well, you might actually be on a dwindling returns kind of pathway.
Absolutely, and it's there. And again, that's another thing that's genre dependent. If you're writing science fiction or fantasy, if you're not writing a series, it's almost unheard of. I mean, it's very difficult to write standalone books in sci-fi fantasy because the readers we like
because they expect it.
And even mysteries and amateur sleuths and stuff. Like if you're writing thrillers or something, you might have a lot of standalones or like some other things, and and even romance. Even if the books are separate, a lot of times you have connected. But there's some genres that are definitely your readers want series; they're expecting series.
Right. Well, but I think if you do, and I think it's absolutely true. I think there can be, if the first one doesn't sell well on you, right, you could have gotten yourself into something that now I wrote a 3-book arc and then no one, liked the first book, and now the second book is going to sell less, and the chances of that picking up and not being a colossal, I don't want to say waste of time, because I don't look at art that way. I mean, so I guess if you don't look at your writing as art, it may be a colossal waste of time for you if it's just a commerce. If it's a piece of art for you, art is also as much for the artist as it is for the viewer, the person getting it.
Amen.
So, yeah, and so if that's how you look at it, then yeah, write a trilogy, and if it sells less, then big whoop. But
Yeah. There's also the long tail version you have to think about it because I mean they've done plenty of studies where I mean it used to be like you needed 4 to 5 books and now I think it's more like 6 to 8 or something. I mean it keeps kind of changing. But you have that thing. It's like, yeah, if you write a trilogy and the first book does well, but the other two don't do well, okay, that's great. Well, your fourth book or your fifth book might do really, really well, and then you've got your readers going, oh, what else does that author have? And they go back and they see your catalog, and then all of a sudden, like all of your other books are starting to sell because that you've got a book that does that. So like it's the
Amen.
ones who keep
I think what
publishing
that
the
points
book.
at. Yeah, I'm sorry. What I think what it points at is that when you were talking actually before that time, it made me think of it is that you can sell a ton of books. If no one reads them, all that was profit in the beginning, right? That doesn't lead to that tail. That tail comes when people actually read your book and connect to it. And that can happen at any time.
Like if you have like one book that doesn't do well and you do later, like you've got how many you hear of, I'm trying to think of somebody in specifics, but you hear a lot of authors who were like, well, yeah, they were an overnight success, but it was like book 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden their languish, their other books all of a sudden got thrown out and put on the bestseller list because they didn't have a book that, I mean, I even want to say Suzanne Collins. Okay, I don't think she was ever not successful, but her Gregor the Overland series did not get it's a great series, middle grade, did not get the focus, if I remember reading, if my facts are right here. But then once Hunger Games came out, and then you have all those people looking for other stuff, and I'm sure Gregor the Overlander, I'm sure those books got a lift up there. So you've got lots of people who are like that, where they have a catalog out there, and then they happen to get that breakout book, and that breakout book. Just because, and then it just changes their careers because all their other books are selling because they managed to get that. So it's like, if you've got a couple of books that don't sell, just you may not want to continue working towards that one series that isn't selling. It's like obviously wrap up the story, make it a nice little arc, or go back to it later. But like, what other books can you write that is similar enough that if they like this book, they'll like those old books, and then go, okay, let's try relaunching my career with this new book and see if I can get more readers and see if I can get readers to look at my original books and see what happens. So you definitely have ways where you can try to revitalize your career. It may or may not work. But
and that's also a plus for indies because our books never go out of print.
Sure. Well, and you can also pull a Star Wars, right? So actually, people forget Star Wars is indie. George Lucas put Star Wars together because he couldn't get people to do it. And the reason the first one ends with them destroying the Death Star is he didn't know if he was ever going to get to make the other stories. Right. And that's why it kind of repeats. You destroy another Death Star because he was getting to the arc he had envisioned at the end. So I think that's also an option, if you're starting out on that path is, hey, you can I want to write a series, but you can see how it goes, right? Kind of give it an ending, but you didn't kill off Darth Vader. You didn't kill off the Emperor, right? There's still a lot there, but they did defeat the big threat at the moment, right? And
I would say that's one of the curses of literary fiction, because there isn't continuity necessarily between one book and another. And so just like one of your books might not have anything to do with why they like the next one or hate it. So there's no genre to support you. There's no expectation to give readers kind of a foothold into your book. And I think it makes literary fiction much harder to market because it is always something different. And if you're Jodi Picoult or if you're Anita Shreve, you've got a similar enough style and you've got structures that are the same and you kind of have the same voice. And that creates almost a series feel, even though the plots are different, characters are different and all of that. But if your books are wildly different and the voices are different and all the rest of it, you really have to reinvent each and every time what you're doing. And I think that's a handicap. I feel it is, anyway, for purely literary.
That's really interesting. I'm not sure, because I think that with literary fiction, you love it. It's almost an intangible. I mean, yes, certainly the topic can change. The author's voice you mentioned can even be different, but there's something still the same. It's still that same author who you've loved once. You'll probably love other stuff of
It's
theirs.
kind
I
of like
think.
when you went to a Spielberg movie, back in the 80s, right? Spielberg would do Jaws and then
Oh.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind and then whatever it was, and you were like, oh, I want to see what the storyteller's given me, this time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
And you also have like thematic series. I mean, a lot of times you'll have some of the literary writers, or even in movies and stuff like that. You've got very similar themes, so you always know you're going to get an X type book because there's a theme that might run through all of the various books.
Yeah.
So there's something, or maybe it's always about these amazing settings, or what is Alyssa Maxwell always writes in the big historic mysteries, I think, and she writes in those big, beautiful, old, historic mansions. And the stories may change, but you're going to get this amazing setting, and you know where it's going to be. So there's things to it that will pull you into the story and into that. So there's probably series-like elements, even if it's not the traditional series.
I think that's really true. I mean, and I'm thinking specifically of your books here, Diane, which I think I've read all of now. I don't normally read much literary fiction, but there's something about the way you write and your preoccupations and the way your insight into characters and the way you handle character that makes you compelling to me. So there is that thread, but it is very different, say, a series author.
Yeah.
In the genre. Different thing.
One of the things that can help with that, there's a writer that Dario and I both know who writes, actually two writers, who center all of their books in the same fictional town. And so though the stories and the mysteries are always different, we've got that town. And I love that. I love going back to town because I know what it feels like. I know what to expect from it. And so I feel like it's a welcoming environment, even though I'm meeting new characters or ones that were bit players in another of the books. And that too can give you some of that sort of series continuity without being literally a series.
Right. Well, Faulkner did that a lot. Faulkner had kind of his south, but it was a very particular area, as a fictionalized area, and people knew they were going back to Faulkner's, kind of south versus, So
you even have some. You would have some romance writers that do that. I mean, you'll have a lot where you'll have characters are related. I mean, there's a series where there's four siblings, and I think it's a sister and three brothers, and they're all named after military generals, which is funny. And there's 4 books, and each one follows the relationship of the sibling. So the siblings are kind of crossover, and it's like the best friend of the one ends up with the brother, and there's this, and the brother hires the love interest for the sister to come in to help her because she's, an ex is bothering her. So like there's continuity, even though the books are all very, very different and different settings and different everything, but there's continuity because the characters kind of show up in each other. Like a minor character in one book becomes the major character of another book, and you see that a lot in romances where you'll have a series, but it's all a series of connected characters through some type of relationship.
Well, Salinger did that. J.D. Salinger did that with his short stories and Franny and Zoe. And they're, again, very different individual books and stories, but same family. So.
Sure. Yeah, I think finding that. Well, and I think the other thing that's cool now, it's what is old is new again, right? So, Oh, I didn't write it down. Actually, I had looked it up the other day. But so serialized fiction used to be a big thing, right? So I think it was The Tale of Two Cities, like the list, the Account of Monte Cristo. Like actually, when I looked at the list of things that were actually started off as serialized fiction that became novels that we teach in school, Sherlock Holmes, I mean, the list is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I mean, there's so much Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like now they're hitting my head. All started off as serialized fiction. So when I was talking about pirates earlier, I kept thinking like, okay, this is a mammoth thing. Like this is gonna be very hard for me to produce indie or to get someone to take a chance on me to do. And then because one of the perks of the gig here is interviewing people and getting like this large swath of people that have been wildly successful, traditional and successful indie, just starting off and everything else, is having people on. I was talking with someone and they were talking about, serialized fiction and things. And that's actually, I think, the first thing that lit RPGs got its start, I think, in Royal Road. I've actually never been on it, but it's like a Wattpad. But they do mainly, I think, fantasy and things. And that's where it kind of started. And I was like, oh, that actually makes perfect sense. I have this big, unwieldy novel that I don't think I don't want to cut 30,000 words to fit it into a package. Because I think this is the expression, right? Because I'm very big on that because I'm artsy fartsy and woo woo, to my chagrin, and I could make much more money not doing this stream right now. I could make much more money, but I don't do the things that make me money. This is my issue financially, but. But I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. This is a story that would be perfect as a serial that you could put each chapter in. And I had always thought, because if you, they do it sometimes now on streaming shows, but it used to be pretty big. And I think probably just growing up as an 80s, 90s kid, 80s, 90s, they'd go, last time on Pirates of Appalachia. And you have this little thing. And I always pictured that in the chapters I'm going, like, last time on Pirates of Appalachia, the boys met the hate walker. Now we're all fucked, whatever it happens to be. And that's what I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, that's actually perfect. So actually, as I was looking, querying agents and things, I was like, oh, and and they don't even I remember submitting short stories, and there was the slush pile that literally when I started was actual paper, right? It would stack up. And that you would send them a self-addressed stamped envelope, and they would send you your story back. And so
it broke your heart when you saw that thing show up in there. Unless it was thick. If it was thicker, then you got excited. But if it was that thin little piece of paper, you knew it was a rejection.
Yeah,
you hoped you got a whole piece of rejection, not just
initials.
Like a strip of paper.
Initials.
You would feel good if they just took a moment to personalize your rejection, right? Hey, this isn't our normal one, but
I kept mine, the ones that had initials on them.
Oh, I did.
I have all of mine, even the form letters. I think I have my whole stack.
Oh, that's funny.
I still have them all somewhere.
That's funny. I kept them for a long time. I think when we moved into this house, when I was getting rid of stuff, I think I get rid of those. But it's that thinking. It was like, oh, you know what? Why don't you could do that, right? You can query an agent. They can't even give you the just stamped envelope back now. And I was doing that, and just and I had this horrible publishing experience, and I was like, well, there's this perfect route here. This is the route maybe it should go. This should maybe be something. And again, getting back to getting a reader, getting people that actually read your things, that if they go on and they read chapter 13, well, the chapters 1 through 12 are there. And maybe they'll read those. And then if you have a physical book or an ebook they can lead to, well, now they can go back to it, And then just as I was kind of talking with people and things, it was there's these really amazing routes that are springing up it's funny because it is what's old is new. There are also old routes that used to exist but just exist kind of in a different way. But if you really just kind of think about what career do you want and what does that story need, right? If this wasn't such a big unwieldy epic absurdist satire, right? No one writes. I don't know that anyone's ever strung those words together until I started stringing them together all the time. Until that happened, I was like, oh, that's kind of the perfect way. I'm going to do this. And then it kind of loops in nicely with what I'm doing here on the show. And I'm like, okay, I'll do this. And then, but the next book, maybe I feel differently about it, right? Maybe it's, I do have some thoughts because my son's of 14, he's about to be 14. And he was going, oh, I don't really feel like there's any books I like to read. And then, when your kid tells you that and you're a writer, you think, I want to write that book that you like to read, But Yeah, and some of them would maybe find it. Some of the kids, once you start hitting 14, 15, are pretty internet savvy and things. But to your point, Janice, earlier, is that like there is gatekeepers and things, and how do you? And I think gatekeepers get a bad name, but I think also sometimes you want some gatekeepers, right? Like maybe you want a gatekeeper before it hits your kids.
Yeah, your school librarians and your teachers. I mean, my goodness, there's so many books I got from my media specialist, when I would go into school and look for things. And especially if they know you've got a kid who's a reader, there's tons and tons, and they're familiar with the books and the stuff. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot out there. It is harder to find stuff for boys that age. Yeah. Absolutely. It is tough what's on there. I mean, that was one of the things with my series is I was really shocked because it's first person, it's a girl. But I love action, so it's very fast paced, it's very action oriented, deals with a lot of pain and cool stuff. And I was finding that like half my readership were boys. Sure. And they were coming in and loving it. And I was like, wow, people always say boys won't read girl protagonists. It's like, yeah, I beg to differ, they're reading mine. So that made me really, really happy that I had something that was appealing to both boys and girls of that age group, because it's middle grade. Yeah. So it's harder to find some of the stuff for the boys and for the kids and stuff, especially the more YA was taking off. It was definitely tougher because it was so many YA books are written for adults because a significant portion of YA novels are sold to adults. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of in 14, 15 is kind of that really weird age because you're old enough for YA and you're reading YA, but there's a lot of YA that's written for older YA, not younger YA, because it's written for the adults. And then, but you're too old for the younger YA. So you don't want to read about 12 and 13-year-olds. Right. You want to read about 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds. So it's a really tough age.
One of the other things that gives me hope is that I gather, I can't attest to it because I live in a very small town with no bookstore, but I gather that there is a resurgence of indie bookstores, independent bookstores, as opposed to Barnes and Noble, formerly Borders. And when my first books came out, I lived in the Pacific Northwest, and the best contacts ever are the owners of these indie bookstores, because when they find a book they love, they will hand sell it to everybody. And one of my books, when Borders was still a thing, there's a little Borders in a town in Massachusetts, and they decided that they were going to take one of my titles that they like and hand sell 1,000 copies. And I told them, if you sell 1,000 copies of Hannah's Dream, I will come to you and I will take you to dinner. And by God, they did it. What an amazing thing. They were delightful, but because the Pacific Northwest was like the nirvana of independent bookstores. There were so many of them, and they were great. So if it's true that independent bookstores are coming back again, getting in, having some of those people read your book and hopefully like it is a great gig too, because they will hand sell things they like.
Right.
Well, our friend Sue recently did a signing at a local bookstore in a suburb in Denver, and she expected to have no one show up. I mean, it's a tiny bookstore. I've been to their website. She sold over 20 copies.
Yes. Good for her.
Yeah. Just, like in an hour, awesome. A tiny little local independent bookstore. They attract a fiercely loyal audience. Yes. I think that's part of it.
Very.
Yeah. It's also about building communities and stuff. I mean, a lot of the indie bookstores that I've gone to, they're really good about communities. They do a lot of, they bring in a lot of authors. They do a lot of events and things and talk about it. And, and it's not just we're selling book to readers. We're building a community of writers who love books. And then they start learning who their customers are, and they start looking for books that they know is going to appeal to their customers. So you get some really nice niche type symbiotic relationships going between readers and booksellers and everything. And that can be really magical. And you can get some really amazing authors and stuff who can come in here with some of them. So it's nice.
Right, absolutely. Yes. Well, I think that if there's, I think there's probably lots of good uses for AI. I use like AI for the show. Like I record a show. So actually, Diane, I think I did it with yours. Dario and Janice, I think it was before I had ever contemplated this. But now I film the show. And then one of my work processes, I feed it through this AI that gives me a bunch of the little YouTube shorts, and it gives you like 40 of them,
Nice.
right? I'm not going to use 40, but it allows me to look through them, and then I can edit them and I can do little things, and then go, okay, well, here's a nice little 5 or 6, so that when I release the next episode, next time Dario's on Writers Drinking Whiskey, the show releases, and then the next week each day I have a little short of the show to try to draw some people that be interested, right, and go watch it. So it's really cool. That's a really cool use of AI. Like, I've done all the work. You're just helping me, because it was taking me a long time. It already takes me, each episode takes me probably about 8 hours to film and record and edit and do all of that. And when I was trying to do the shorts myself, it was adding a lot. It was adding another 4 hours, and it didn't seem worth it. But now I have that. I'm like, oh, and some of them have popped off. I think I just had my first that hit 4,000 views with over the weekend. Just off on its own. So I'm like, oh, that's very cool. Like it wasn't a robot did something for me. The robot helped me do something I was doing. But I think what's
good use.
Yeah, but I think what's cool about building community, and that's why, Janice, when you said that, it really struck me, because I think that a lot, especially with the show. I think that word hits my brain a lot, is that we need to start thinking about do the thing that AI can't, right? Like, so, hey, if you actually get out, so Sue got out and then went and saw people, sold $20, those 20 people will probably buy her next, book.
Yep.
Right. And then that can grow. And so the AI can't get out there and actually be face to face with you and give you a hug or a handshake and kind of talk to you and actually build a community.
Tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tool. I think that as writers and as anytime the technology and stuff comes out, I think the writers who refuse to have anything to do with it or to learn it or to figure out, what can I do? How can this help me? I mean, I'm not going out and saying, oh yeah, I'll just let AI write a book. No, it's not going to write a very good book. But it is a tool. It can be very, very helpful. And the more like any other tool, the more you can use it to stream, like you're doing, you're able to streamline a whole process, lets you do the more creative things that you want. I mean, I know that I use it for stuff. It's great for writing really bad examples for my blog. When I need a bad writing example, it's fabulous for it. But like the other day, I was looking for something and I needed words for it's great for bad examples. It's really good. Sure. And it's hard to write bad examples at this point in my life.
I believe it. Yeah.
But like I needed a third. It was a sentence I wanted. I wanted something. It was unsomething, unsomething, and unsomething. Like I wanted the rhythm. I wanted the flow. And I was in trouble thinking of the third word that conceptually fit with that. So I call it Chatty. I just loaded up ChatGPT, and like here's give me a third unword that would go with the concept that I gave the two thing, and it spit out like 12 or 15 words, and I went, yes, that's the word that I want. That's perfect. And it was a great simple thing, and it was AI, and I'll do that. I ask it for silly little things and questions, and it works great for that.
Well, and
I'm not going to ask it to write me a novel, but I'll certainly use it for a more specific interactive Google.
Sure. Well, yeah, and I think that's a great way to think of it. But also, like, if you think of it as like you would use an online thesaurus, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could put a word in like, hey, I'm looking for this, but I wanted to have this connotation or something. I've thought about doing it, but I mean, I think that could be a really great use for it is a thesaurus, but also I'm looking for this. You know what I mean? Like, give me a word that means dark, but it also kind of has these connotations. It'll give you 5-6 words, and then you can kind of make a decision on what actually works best, in that sentence. So I think it's an amazing time, actually. Like, Google was an amazing time for writers, right? We got to research things way faster. AI is a way better research assistant than Google was. So I started using.
You have to verify, because half the stuff is wrong.
Sure,
I mean, it's not accurate.
Yeah.
So, but like if you're brainstorming, you're looking for ideas and stuff. Sometimes it can get your brain working in the thing. But yeah, it's like you can't. If it says there's a fact, you cannot trust that fact is accurate.
Are you saying my morbid facts wasn't correct when we started this show?
AI wrote it, and not necessarily. But yeah, I mean,
it wasn't even AI. It was random guy on the internet, but
yeah, AI will definitely tell you the wrong things. Absolutely.
for sure. Well, but it has gotten what's cool is if you use one of the ones like one of the ones I like is Perplexity. It gives you the citations on it, so you can click on the link that says. So like I was writing a scene that had to do with a root canal, which I've had root canals before, but I was like, oh, I want to have some detail to it. Like I don't, it doesn't need to be step by step, right? But I want some detail, make sure I'm remembering right. And it gives you the link, and you can go. So you can kind of, if you're writing historical fiction or something that really needs that detail, you can use it to get you started, and then delve till you get back to the primary sources.
It's
from there.
Kind of like that. It's like that overall. You get a thing, and you go, "Oh, that's really interesting," or "Oh, that's kind of in the vein of what I want," and then you can take that and you can do more research and dig later.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely it's a fun tool. I mean, I use it for stuff.
Right.
But yeah, and I think writers should learn to use it because I think it can make our lives easier for a lot of things.
Sure.
It's just use it to what's going to help you do the stories that you want to write.
Right.
It's definitely not going to be able to like write the novel that a real person could write.
Thank goodness.
All it's doing is adding it's predictive text. It's not thinking. It's just predictive text.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, always remember that, right? Always
Yes.
remember that.
Yeah. But
I heard someone say it's
not
like
gonna give you anything good or original because it's giving you the most common next word in the sentence. So it's only going to give you what everybody is talking about and what everybody is doing. So it's not going to give you anything fresh or original because literally it can't.
Sure. It actually needs us more than we need it. Right? Like Elon Musk already came out and was like, oh, it needs more. We can't train it because it's going to turn into a garbage loop, very quickly. So it actually needs us more than we need it.
It's going to start feeding on itself. The more people use it, the more it's going to be using its own articles to train itself to use its own articles. It's that copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah, yeah. And then that's already kind of where it's heading. So, but if you use it for, like I'll use it for, there's the tags on YouTube, which is kind of little keywords, like the SEO basically. It helps me with that. I feed it the transcript to this show. And it'll say, hey, here, use these ones. And I'll edit them, but it gives me a great 80% start, and then I'm like, hey, here's a few that I usually make sure I always add.
And it probably has some things that you hadn't thought about. So yeah, actually keywords and SEO, that's great. It's great for comp titles. I'll use it for comp titles.
Sure.
For books and ideas and stuff. It's fun for, like I said, bad examples. It's great for titles. I like it for titles.
I love the bad examples. When you said that was so amazing.
Oh, it's great for bad examples because it is. It's hard to find something, and I'll be like, "Give me a real bad example." And so I definitely, and I know I'll change some of the stuff, or I change words or change some things, but it gives you the bad writing, and then I can adjust it to whatever it is that I'm specifically trying to say. Here's a bad example, but that is my favorite use of it. I think is to give me really bad examples that I can. Talk about.
Right. Well, and one thing that not to change. So actually, before we transition a little bit to the marketing aspect of it here, Janice had not Janice, but Diane had brought up the fact that more indie bookstores are building, and I think more Barnes and Nobles have gone up. And I did have the link, but book sales rose. I think last year, I think they said it was something like 6% or something, that not insignificant. Like overall book sales, rose last year, and that's not counting. Substack and all these serialized places where people go on and pay monthly to get fiction. So, and that's not even counted those numbers. So people, in fact, might be reading more than they were 10 years ago. And it's just hard to say, but
I hope so.
Yeah, everyone here and everyone watching certainly hope so. Was there any, before we move over to the marketing end of things, like to blurb and not to blurb and such, anything else to tie a knot on what we've been talking about? No? Okay. So we'll move to that. So one of the cool things, so I had looked up, and if I was better with the software and knew I could pull it up without kicking everyone off and muting me somehow, I would just pull it up for all of us to look at. But one of the things I thought was, it was a few, I don't know, it was probably when, so The Hordes of Torment became the current novel, But the Ripping Apart, which Dario, thank you for helping me find that title, eventually when we hit there. But, when I got, so you get the publishing contract and like you're feeling good, you're like, yeah, I'm so amazing, people want to publish my words, and then they're like, you need to now go out and find people that will say nice things about you, right? And write a blurb for the back of your book that talk about how amazing you are in every single way. And I was never able to find anyone that said that, but I found a few people that said something nice about the book. But I did actually, in that course of that, and then even just later, kind of start realizing, like, how are these canned, right? Like, I could, like, write you a blurb tomorrow. You could be like, hey, Bill, write me a blurb. And I could just blather, like I have a good Irish, like, heart in me. I'll blather on about how amazing you are in every way.
Buy me a Guinness and I'll tell you anything.
Exactly. So it was actually, now it turns out, and I'll pull it up here off screen, but there's a few of the bigger publishing houses now that have started to really rethink the idea of asking people to go get these blurbs and things, and
I've read that.
Yeah, and how well do they actually sell books, versus not.
I have a little.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
That's all right. Go ahead.
No, I think it's partly because writers hate doing it.
Sure.
And their publishers are always asking them to write blurbs for other authors.
Well,
sorry, Dan.
and I think it becomes that doom cycle we talked earlier, because I hate doing it. But then I know that if Diane calls me and she needs one, then I'm like, oh, I know she hates doing it, but she needs this for her publisher. So yes, I will do it. And actually, I don't even mind what I always, like, when the few times I've been asked, it's like, I actually want to read your book. And that's what kills me, because I chew things. I don't even read them. I chew them. So it's like, you need this blurb in a month. But I was like, that's not how I read exactly. Like, I'm going to get this. I'm going to chew on it. I'm going to think. I'm going to see something shiny and like be over here for 5 minutes. But yeah, anyways, go ahead, Diane. What were you saying?
Well, I have a story about blurbing or getting blurbed when Going to Bed, which was my first book, the one that radically underperformed. I got a call one day from my agent and my editor, a joint call, to tell me that Fannie Flagg had agreed to blurb my book. And they were so excited about it. And it completely missed me. It's like, yeah, I know who Fannie Flagg is. That's good, I guess. But they were so excited because it was a name. And I was a debut author at that point. I was nobody. And so, of course, on the cover of the book, Fannie Flagg's like 3-word blurb. I love the way they do that. It's ... so exciting ... They're worthless, but it was a big deal to them at the time. You never know.
God knows I've asked enough people to blurb me or author friends. Bill's written a couple.
We are herd animals, and if somebody else likes something, then we're more likely to buy it. Well, if somebody else liked it, and it's somebody I even recognize, then I guess I'll take a chance.
And that's the key, and I think that's where you do. And blurbs are interesting because I've done a couple of blurbs. I don't think I've ever actually gotten anybody to blurb me, which is really sad. But I think maybe once or twice. But I think with blurbs is that it's not about, I like this book, this is great. It really, really is a marketing tool. And you have to think about it as a marketing tool, because you also have to think about what book, like if I blurbed a cozy mystery, well, that's absolutely worthless, completely worthless. I don't write cozy readers. I don't read cozy readers. Like, I am not the person to blurb a cozy reader, because they're going to be, who is this Janice Hardy person? Why should I listen to her? Oh, she writes this crappy sci-fi stuff. I don't want to watch. I don't read that nonsense. I would be a terrible person to blurb for that. But so you want to actually find something where you have a blurb where you validate, like, this person, like, I am an expert, I know this, I know what genre I'm talking about. So you want to make sure that you're blurbing something that is legitimate. You validate it, that you're there. So also, for the most part, like, I think if I blurbed a writing book, that would carry weight. If I blurbed a fiction, a novel, I'm not sure how much weight that would carry, because I don't know, I'm just your average mid-list author, like, I'm not a best-selling, well-known author. So I think that people, it's not the blurb that is attracting people. If people see a name that they know and they like,
it's like
that's
Circle
the blurb.
Rec.
So the blurb itself isn't making any difference whatsoever. So I think there's a certain level, you have to achieve a certain level of notoriety and name recognition before your blurb has any value whatsoever. And then the blurb has value. Before you get to that, who cares? Because if I don't know the author that I'm picking up the book, and I don't know the authors that I'm blurbing, why should I care at all what they say? So yeah, I think that's where that line comes down. And so it really, it's kind of a weird thing. So yeah.
Well, don't you have a made-up blurb from your mum on one of your books?
Oh, I do. Fire for Christmas. Because it's a satire. I just satired the whole blurb process. It was my mom. It was my psychologist.
Actually, yeah, if it was like best book I ever read, this is fabulous, Bill's mom. That actually, I would pick up a cover on that because that's funny. Like I would be like, all right, that guy's not taking himself too seriously.
You actually nailed it. I think that's what my mom's, and my mom didn't say this in fact, just to be clear, Mom. Sorry, like my mom wouldn't have lied to people this way, but she went, it's hilarious, the best book ever, Mom. And like, you know.
Yeah, that would make me, I actually would pick up a book for that because that's funny, and that would tell me something about the author and the sense of humor and who they were as a person, and I'd be like, you know what, I'll at least read a chapter or two and see if this is something that I would.
Sure. Well, and I think that's I think that's a great way to look at it, though. Is if you look at it holistically, right? And I think I think what's cool right now actually is that that the fact that there's an indie community and that there's a publishing apparatus still out there, it actually gives you a chance to kind of compare and contrast what's working and what's not, right? And so I think you can look at it and go, oh, hey, you know what? This is really cool. Like, I got this blurb from this person. It made me feel good. And then you realize like, oh, but no one else knows who that is exactly. And every single book says it's the best thing since To Kill a Mockingbird. And now people like you've detached from it. Like when I go read a book, it's, and even, I mean, I'm sure I'm a little more savvy than probably just the average person. I don't think I'm extremely savvy with it, but I think lots of people would just go, oh yeah, Stephen King, whatever, that's a buddy, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then the name recognition, once you start hitting mid-lister down, right? Even bestsellers down, don't have a lot of bestsellers on the show. John Gilstrap's on the show constantly, and like lots of people don't know who he is when we first start. You know, it's just kind of, that's how it is. So if he blurbs something, he might be the great guy to tell you what the next great thriller is. You may not know that and think anything of it. So, but if you look at it holistically and go, here's my marketing plan for this book, and okay, you know what, this is a thriller. I really want to get, 4 or 5 other thriller authors that not only are willing to blurb it, but actually really read it and really cared, like think this was a really good book. And they're willing to go on social media and also give me a little plug and things, right? To where even if that's 10 people that go read your book, if it's actually readers, I always go back to that mindset, is that if you get people that actually read it, that's way better than sales. Because sales put money in your pocket, but readers are the thing that'll actually keep you going.
That's why print books are great, because people lend them out.
Right.
You know, people think, oh, you know, I'm missing a sale if someone lends someone a print book. No, you're gaining a reader.
Yeah. Right.
You can't do that with an ebook.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. The only thing known to or proven to sell books is reader word of mouth.
Yep.
Yes,
that's the only thing that works. You tell somebody, oh, this is a fabulous book. Dario picked up a book that I recommended that he probably would not have read, and I raved about it, and he picked it up and read it.
Well, I had an interesting experience today. I've been Facebooking a lot, which I don't normally do, but I picked up a whole ton of people. And I didn't feel like doing anything political today, so I decided, what the hell, I might as well excerpt, this much of one of Hannah's Dream, which was the book that sold well, and had, I don't know, 5 or 6, not a ton, but 5 or 6 people chime in saying, oh, I love this book. It was a great book. You should read it. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I really wasn't intending to do it as a sales pitch, but it worked. And maybe I even had one extra person who was going to go and read that book.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually meant a lot more to me than my royalty statement, or lack of royalty statement, as the case may be. But it was pretty cool. I mean, there's something incredibly something sustaining about readers who actually read your damn book and liked it and are willing.
That's why we're doing this, you know? Yeah.
I think for a lot of us, sales are lovely, and it's one quantitative way of measuring if you're successful or not. But when it comes right down to it, I don't know any writers who are as interested in the marketing end of things as are interested in how their readers felt once they'd read the book. And so that was my little example for today, that there were 6 people, I think it was 6, maybe there were 8 people who had read the book already, recognized that little, excerpt, and said, "Oh yeah, I love that book." It was like, oh, it made my whole day, much more than any sales report. It was just nice.
As I've said before, that's my baseline definition of success.
Mhm.
Is if I feel I've really touched one person, that's it. I've done it.
Mhm.
One person.
Right.
I mean, hopefully a lot more, but that's what it really is. It's touching someone. It's
Making that connection.
Yeah.
it's making that connection.
The best review I ever got by far was just one sentence. "When I finished this book, I hugged it." I was like, it doesn't get any better than that. And then stop.
That's what blurb you put on your, that's what you put on your cover. Like, that's something you put on. Yeah.
Going back to the blurb thing, though, there's something that brought up for me, Bill. Something I really dislike, which is kind of akin to the blurb, is for fans of Stephen King, or if you like, insert author name, you're going to love this. I hate that. That actually puts me off buying a book, because my immediate thought is, no, it means it's not as good as that author. It's just such a dumb damn thing to do, for fans of so-and-so.
Yeah, but whenever you pitch agents, for instance, they always want to know what's a comparable book that sells well.
It's it's the thing, because it's hard to say what it is, and it's like, well, if you like horror, if you like this, if you thematically like certain elements of a book that this author writes, then you might like this. Which is, so really it's a more reader focused way of doing comp titles.
Yep.
Right.
No, I don't like it either, because everybody always wants to compare themselves to the big giant best-selling author, and it's like, okay, well, not everybody is reading the big, it's like, so sometimes it's true. I mean, sometimes it's definitely true. Sure. But sometimes it's not. So that is the tough one. I know. Well, discoverability, I think, is one of the hardest things when you're talking about marketing. Again, Dario and I have had so many conversations about this, because there's so many books out there, and it's so hard to find things. And I know my husband is a really tough reader. He loves to read, but like, he's kind of almost a reluctant reader. Like, it needs to be the right book, it needs to grab him, and he's just like, I'll read almost anything.
I'm a bit like that.
At least the first couple of chapters of anything. And then you got to grab me. But like, he's really, really hard, and he's like, has looked a lot of places to find, like, there's some different sites and stuff out there where you can like I like this book. Well, here are books that are similar. Here are books with this. And there's a lot of sites, and he's been using a lot of those and trying to find the right site, the right place that will give him recommendations for books, because it used to be you could go into a bookstore and you wandered through the bookstore and you found books. Well, now you go in there, there's, especially if you read sci-fi fantasy. We were in Barnes and Noble a couple of weeks ago, and this, I mean, I'm sorry, I think, at one point we had more sci-fi fantasy on our shelves than, like, their fantasy was bigger, but the sci-fi section, it's tiny.
Well, but the other problem is that now that we do online book shopping, you can't browse in the way that you could in the old days when there were no bookstores.
You can't go on Amazon and find something new, right? Because whatever's on you're not going to go 8 pages down, right? So Amazon is a bookshop. You don't find anything new. You find what you already know you want, right? You have to go other places to try to find it.
AI, then.
I actually think so too. Yeah.
AI.
Mm-hmm.
You could. I've never tried that, but now I'm really interested to see. I should put in some of my favorite titles and go, I really love this book.
Yeah,
Give me more recommendations that are like this, and just see what it pops up with.
well, I have
I
to
think
say
it might
too,
just give you anyone that said this. You might like this book too. I do think it's a really cool
Very
use
well.
of it, though. I thought of that with social media. And I'm actually probably in the next few weeks I'm going to try to work this out. Is that instead of me needing to, me going into Twitter and then trying to cycle through the algorithm Twitter gave me, if I could actually have my robot do it, right? My robot overload go search my Twitter and then go, here's post you might like based on what you told me. That would be really cool to me. Like, oh, hey, go
Totally
in.
robot. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, it's like it's like, what is it? UPS? What can Brown do for you? Like, what can AI do for you? Like, it's
Right.
kind of the same thing. Like, how can you use the tool?
Right.
and I'm a big fan, speaking of effective marketing, I'm a huge fan of BookBub. And I don't even know who owns BookBub, who does it, but it's basically, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a daily thing that you get. You tell it what genres you're interested in, biography, history, romance, whatever it might be. And it selects a handful of titles, and they're always $2.99 or less, and it's ebooks. But BookBub is great. You get these amazing titles through, and I can tell you, having been on it maybe 3 different times with one of my books, I'm guaranteed 1,000 sales just by being in BookBub. So
Sure.
in terms of a marketing avenue, it's dynamite. It's a really good one, but it also is a good way of discovering books that aren't always bestsellers. They're not. I choose literary and biography and a few other, some more obscure categories, but I get some great books that way, and my books sell well that way and at discount. I mean, they're not terribly money making. I get something, of course, from it, but it's a great way to spread the word and to get that book
It can
refreshed.
be really hard to get a BookBub mention now, and it's you
Yeah.
pay for that too, if I remember
Always
correctly.
has
So,
been.
like, great for discoverability, but from like the author standpoint, like, I know I have a friend who submitted multiple times to try to get, and she's got like an 18-book series, so it's not like she's brand new.
Oh my
I think-
God.
She
Yeah.
and she finally did recently. Like, I within the last couple of weeks, I'd be very curious to see how her book did. But yeah, like getting into it, getting accepted by it. can be
And
very
I would say that's one of the advantages of traditional publishers, in that they deal with it. I don't. They just let me know,
Right.
hey, you're going to be in BookBub again, and there you go. It is definitely a benefit of a traditional publisher. I suspect that they skew toward the traditionally published books, and they also they prefer titles that are known at least to somebody. They don't do totally obscure things, but they do drive a lot of sales. So it'd be interesting to see how her book or his book performs. Her.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I'd be very curious to see that. So we're all looking forward to the next meetup.
Right.
We talk
Well,
through this.
and that's why, because you can go on the Twitter and hashtag writing community and see how it does, right? And if you're not on there and you don't live on there, you're probably not going to get much, right? So it is, and I'm glad you brought up BookBub, because that's the other part, right? So I said there's this cottage community that's built around selling things to writers. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I love going to little cottages that sell me stuff I'm looking for, right? Like we go to our little, like our neighborhood, I say, where we are in Glendora, is like the Mayberry of LA County, which is a little bedroom community. We have our tiny little village. It's like one street of mom and pop shops that you go, and there's trees, and there's all kinds of little cottage shops there, and you can go find it, and that's really cool. But how do you pick out the ones that are selling you something that you might actually want, right? You might want that CBD oil that for your joints because you have the gout and you're trying something out. Very cool. You're going to try that. Or it versus some of the ones that are just selling you something, right? Like they're hey, we're gonna, we're booked dud, and we're gonna get you in front of all these people, and you never get in front of them, and you're not gonna make any money, and they're just, You're just prying money out, or you're, hey, go sign up for this award. Here, submit your book.
Contest.
Maybe you get an award. Yeah, get this award contest. And some of which you might lose, some of which, no, we're just giving you an award because you're paying us money, So how do you, as a writer in our current day and age, manage that minefield, right? Like, how do you go, hey, I do want to get my book out for awards. I do want to get it out to BookBub and not BookDud. How do you navigate that minefield?
That's really valid. I mean, I always like to say that there's so much more money to be made in writer services than in writing, and that's that goes to, I'm pretty careful with not using my primary valued email for anything other than contacting people. I have dud emails, but I still get spam in it from people trying to sell me publishing services.
Sure.
And I'm a one-stop publishing shop myself. I don't need this stuff.
Well, but that's why I said that.
So much of it is rackets. How do you tell whether it's promotion or editing or book production services? How do you tell?
Well, the other thing is, how do you decide? I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I paid my publicist more than I earned from Hannah's Dream. And she did a dynamite job, and the book sold a ton of copies. But how do you decide whether you're going to actually, kick a bunch of money into it and go for broke, or just decide that you're going to do what you can on your own without those services? And
because you want it to be more than just what's the right term? I don't want to call it a vanity process, but vanity in the financial sense, right? So if you pay a publicist, you want to get more back than what you paid into it, right? You paid publicist $1,000, you want $2,000 back. Return on investment. Thank you.
It's your return on investment, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, it sounds crazy, but one of the things that I do, and it may not be the smartest thing because I'm probably not typical for a lot of readers, but I kind of think of, would this work on me? If I saw this somewhere, would I buy the book? Right. And if my answer is I would never buy a book from that site, well, that's not what I'm going to do anything with. So, it's kind of how I look at it. And then again, it's what's the return on investment? If I'm going to spend X amount of money, like, what am I going to get on that? And then it's even like doing visits, or I even kind of do that when I'm doing like workshops and events and stuff as the writing teacher versus the novelist. Is like, well, how much am I going to be paid for this? How many books can I sell? And there's some things going, and my husband breaks this down really nicely because he's so logical about this stuff. He's like, well, there's different things. There's the financial gain. There's the intangible gain with like your marketing and your exposure and like getting your name out there and getting new writers and new readers and stuff. And that's important because sometimes, you are getting, like I might accept doing a workshop to like a writers group. Like I hadn't done anything for MWA, Mystery Writers of America, for a long time. And then they invited me to do something and I wasn't getting paid a lot, but I'm like, you know what? This is an entire market of writers. Yeah. I have not gotten a group that I have not been exposed to. And getting into that organization can lead to good things. So it's like, all right, I'm willing to take less to do this in the beginning. And then he's like, and then there's just the things, is it going to be fun? Mm-hmm. Are you going to enjoy it? Is this going to make you feel like a writer? Is this going to make you happy? And he's like, there's a lot of value that can be towards that too. Yeah. So you kind of have to look at what are the advantages. Like they say, a lot of marketing, the stuff that you like to do and the things that you have fun with is where you're going to be successful. Like I hate social media. I do not go on social media. I avoid it. Like I'm not a social media person. I like my blog.
More of us, Janice.
Yeah. I guess a lot of writers are probably like that. I'll talk to anybody. You email me, I'll talk your ear off. Obviously, you haven't even seen, just the last 90 minutes we've been on here, you can tell I'm a huge talker. But, and I like blogging and I like communicating, I like helping people. And so, like, what are the things that I like doing? Like, so what are the things that you like doing as a writer? Like where, like hanging out with readers and going to places and talking about the things you do. Like, and again, it comes down to that building a community and connecting. Yeah. How can you connect to your readers? How can you connect to them and talk to them in ways like there's a gal. I'm going to totally mangle her name, but she's an Australian, Jessie Knife, I think, Cunniffe, and she has a business called Book Blurb Magic. No affiliate. I'm just saying this because I love her. And she does teaches you how to write blurbs. She does custom blurbs. She writes books. She does all this, and she has this daily email or weekly email that goes out there, and she does these wonderful things where she tells these stories. There's a little thing. It's a very soft sell. I will buy any freaking thing she puts up because I have taken her classes. I love her email. I love her classes. I always learn something. And she was talking about, like, with fiction, that she had one of her clients who was a mystery writer, and this was talking about doing email lists. Again, this is marketing. Your email list is one of the biggest, strongest email tools or marketing tools you have, especially in today's, because it's yours, you control it, you're building your list. And she was saying that she had a mystery writer client who would write out her emails, and like as nonfiction, it's easy. I have something I can give my readers that helps them, that's actionable. But with novelists, what are you going to talk about on a daily or weekly basis, right? Keeping in touch with your readers is really, really difficult. And so she wrote these little stories and wrote these little things and these little emails, and she was a mystery writer. So all of her emails had like a mystery bent to it, like the case of the broken radiator or the this and that. And she told these stories like she would, like, if you liked her emails, you would like her books.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's genius.
Right.
And because she found a way, and this is why I love Jessie's stuff, because she has these great things. I highly recommend her, because she's not only great to learn how to do your own stuff, but it definitely gives you a way of, this is the kind of, because this is kind of marketing that I want to do, because she's entertaining, she teaches me stuff, I don't feel like she's shoving things down my throat. Like I said, I buy anything she puts up there because I just absolutely love her. And that was a really neat thing. So it's like, how can we connect to our readers in a way that is going to entertain them, make them happy to get our emails and our book? They're not just going to go, oh, I don't want to read this, I'm just going to unsubscribe. Because email is the way to go. Like those newsletters, those marketing things, like what can you do? So that was kind of a fun way. Like, how can you connect to your readers?
Yeah.
What can you do
that's perfect
to make people who may like go like, oh, these are fun emails here, you should these have great emails, you should do this. And then, like, with your writing literary stuff, or you're writing your, all these literary writers, or the various things, like, what can I offer to the readers where they go, gee, I enjoy these emails, let me pick up with her book. I like her writing. No matter what she puts up there, I'm going to buy, because I like the way this author writes. I enjoy this writer. They're entertaining.
Well, an excellent example of that, although again it's more in the political realm, but Andy Borowitz does a daily newsletter, the Borowitz Report, and it's always satire. And they're very short and they're very funny. And I love the man. I mean, it takes me 2 minutes to read them. I laugh, they lighten my morning, and I'm on to something else. But from his little newsletter satire pieces, I buy his stuff. I love him. He's funny. He makes me laugh. And I'm thinking of you particularly because you do satire, and it's a way of connecting. I wouldn't have known of him otherwise, but I love to laugh, especially now when there isn't a lot of reason to. So good. He's done a great job of marketing himself to me. And that's tough. That is tough to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have the marketing has to fit you as a person. Right.
Exactly.
So like whatever you're doing, you can do the weekly newsletter. If that doesn't work for you as a person, you're going to do it for 6 months, you're going to do it for a year, and you're going to trail off because you don't like it. You're not going to get the results because it's and that's why it's like this show was really fun for me because we do the open bars, which was because, again, building community. I actually realized after doing the show for a year and a half-ish of guests, I think, that I was like, you know what? But then I never get to have anyone back on. So it's like, me and Daria are buddies, right? But like, so Diane, like Janice, right? Like, I would have had you on once and we would have never talked again. That would have been the end. Yeah. And so now I do open bars because, now we get everyone together. We actually get to like chat about things and like do things and joke about it. I tell people actually when they're coming on the show, the drinking whiskey is more of a signal that it's inhibited. uninhibited is what the word I'm looking
Uninhibited.
for. Uninhibited conversation, right? Like a loose lip, just having fun, like we're gonna enjoy our time together. And I'm like, that makes sense for me. Like I can come on, we just joke around. Like I'm like, so, okay, so it's marketing, but it's also just a natural thing I would do, and I can give something back. And
writing is a lonely business, and marketing doesn't come naturally to most of us. I mean, maybe a few of us are talented. We're mostly introverts, and we spend our time alone with our computers or pens and pad, whatever. And so it's a relief to get together with that writing community. I don't know any writers who aren't pretty down to earth about their work. I mean, it's lonely and it's hard, and sometimes it works out, and oftentimes it doesn't work out, and you have a bad day, and then the next day magic happens. But God knows community is welcome, because it's not a communal activity for the most part.
Sure.
I always say writers need writers. We get it. But you do also need readers, and I just want to circle back a bit to the email list that Janice mentioned as the most valuable tool a writer can have, and I think that's true. And I think everything that's been said about giving people interesting material, short material, something that makes them connect with them, makes them like you as a person enough to be interested in anything you do. How do you get them to sign up for it in the first place? That I believe is the hardest possible thing.
It is. That's where your reader magnets come in, and offerings things. And part of it is doing different things, something like this. Like, we know that there's probably our bios and whatever Bill has in there, and it can have stuff where you've got links to our websites. If you like, here's this newsletter, and it's like, okay, if you're going to sign up for my newsletter, here's what you're going to get. So you're offering something that they want. And one of the things and one of the big problems with newsletters, and this is coming from, reading from all the different various things, because I've done a lot of reading and stuff on this, trying to learn how to do this. And one of the things they say is the problem with a lot of newsletters and a lot of author newsletters is that the reader only hears from them when they're trying to sell something.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's that whole part about, building community. So if you're being able to talk to them and entertaining them in the little 2-minute satires or whatever, and like maybe for most people, daily's too much. So it might be once a week or maybe even once a month, but you want to do something, you want to find that sweet spot where it's regular enough that you're in their head. You're giving them something so they think fondly of you, so that when you do have something that comes out and you go, hey, I've got a new book, and they're like, oh yeah, I love Dario's stuff, I'm going to go grab his new book. That's great. Because they think of you fun. They know that
you're a friend.
Yeah, they're a friend. You're this. They like you. They also know that you brighten their day once a month when you give them interesting things, or you're telling them whatever fun thing is that you like connecting to you as a person. I'm already gathering different things and trying to figure out what I want to do I've got a pen name, JT Hardy, for my adult stuff. And I don't have anything set up for that, because it's more than, not that anything we need to worry about that, but I already know that at some point I'm going to get that out, that I'm going to start collecting and building that newsletter and building that subscription list for that pen name. And I'm already thinking about what am I going to do to once a week or twice a month, or what am I going to talk about? And then I kind of think about, well, what kind of reader do I want to attract?
Right.
What kind of reader is going to like my book? What can I talk about that's going to attract that reader and make them want to hang out with me, so that so that we have this relationship and that I'm having fun with them? And I love hearing from my readers. It makes me happy when I see emails from my readers.
Oh, sure.
What kind of relationship can I form? And I think that's a good place to start, because it's not, how can I sell something to people? How can I sell to readers? Nobody wants that. I don't want that. Right. Nobody wants. It's like, how can I connect to my readers? What can I offer them that's going to, entertain them and keep them wanting to know about what I have to offer? Like, how can we connect? How can I say, look, if you like the things that I do, you're going to like this. What other books can I suggest to them?
It's like if someone calls you and every time they call you, they're asking for something, right? And then you're just like, you feel that call and you just go, oh, I don't want to deal with this. And it's like, but you want to be the person that calls and they go, oh, they might have something really like funny for me or whatever. Like whatever it is, you want a good feeling when you call. When that email comes in,
you want them
to have a good feeling. Yeah.
It sounds so. I mean, it's so sensible, isn't it? It just makes sense, and yet so many don't do it.
It's hard because I don't know what the solution is to the noise. Right? Like there's so much people trying to do it at all times. Like I did want to mention when we were talking email lists is that one of the cool things, and that's why I was going to go with Substack for pirates here coming up in a month-ish, is that you actually don't get everyone's email address, but you can actually always communicate with everyone that signs up for it. So everyone that signs up for pirates can go on, and they're just getting free fiction every week, right? It's just coming, like they get it, and I'm not sending them a sales pitch every week. It's just here's a notification, there's something new, and they can go read it at their leisure. And then occasionally, if you want to send out a message, you can send out a different message, and it'll come. But giving them something that they want, that they've signed up for. Versus, that's why I think the mystery idea is really cool because it kind of fits in, and I'm sure it fits into the person. Yeah, and you got to fit those things. It's a hard needle to thread actually when you really start thinking about it. Is what works for me, what works for them. How do I actually give you something that's interesting? Like every writer can't go write books on writing and then try to get right. Like, I mean, that can work, but if everyone does that, it's just 1,000 books on writing, right? Like you have to find a way that works for you. Yeah. There's too many already, right? You got to
there are way too many. I write books on writing, and I tell you there's too many. So I know that. Well, and I think one of the reasons that a lot of people don't do it, or they're like, oh, I don't want to do that, is because it doesn't go fast.
Sure.
Building a community isn't instantaneous. It takes work. It takes just as much work to build your community and build your list as it does to build things. And there's different things you can do, and you can go out places, and you can, I do a lot of blog posts and guest blogs and various things, and you go to events or things, and you sign up for my newsletter, and here's, a lot of people, you have the free short story, or you have the free book, or if it's the first book in a series, you can do that if you have a lot of books. So there's a lot of it. Again, it's that reader magnet. There's that I'm offering you something to give me a chance. Here, if you sign up for me and give me a chance, I will give you this reward, and hopefully we will have a beneficial relationship. You'll like what I write, and this will be, I will be able to entertain you and give you books that you enjoy reading, and this will be great for both of us. Right. And it's getting that number, because nobody wants to be spammed. We never want spam. Right.
Well, I have to say, Substack is a great platform in that it allows you to get subscribers for free. You're not asking them to pay for anything, but it generates its own email list essentially. Mm-hmm. And you can put anything on there you want to, and you provide the email collection device initially. But I've just discovered it, and it's becoming a pretty big social media platform. I know, Dario, you hate social media.
Yeah, a lot of people hate social
media. It's social media as in, I think we have to start thinking about us, but communally, right? The communal us is that what's social media versus what is new media. Right, you say YouTube is social media, but if you're coming on and you're watching us talk for 2 hours here, and this is a lot different than, hey, I'm going on Twitter and I'm going to try to put some engagement thing in, or the picture on Instagram or whatever it might be. So I look at Substack because I'm really excited because the announcement will come out here in a few weeks, but not only am I going to put the book on there, I'm going to have all of these shows on there. Besides the live streams, now, I have all the shows recorded out for 6 months. And if you want to get all those shows early, you can actually sign up, get all the shows early. And there's a free sign up. Nice. You can actually do, there's a paid one where you can kind of support the people for, some small, subscription a month. So you can do the patronage version, which is, hey, everyone started using Patreon, but it's not a great site for doing all of that. And that's why I had looked into it. I'm like, I could do Patreon, but it's actually not a great site to put the videos on and things. And so
I
if
think
you can
Substack
link it all
great.
up, it works. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of some of the. I'm a big gamer, so there's a couple of
Oh, sure.
streamers that I watch to do some of the games, and they do these great things. And I've noticed that several of them, especially one gal, is they have it where you can join the site and $5 a month or whatever, and you subscribe. And like she's got stuff where it's like she'll have videos and it's like members only videos, or members first. So she has videos where you get the video first, and it might be a week or two before the free version comes out. So like if you do want to give her that extra $5 and support her, and they're doing this for free, and I mean they get whatever YouTube stuff, but I've been seeing more and more of that where you get that added value. You get extra videos, you get extra stuff, you get behind the scenes stuff, and you get first looks at some things and stuff. And again, is that valuable to you to get that stuff? And some of it's like, do I do it, do I not do it? And
right. Well, it's kind of like that what's
like,
old is new again, right? Because Da Vinci, all these guys had patrons, right? That's where the word's coming from. Like they had rich people that do it, but now it's the man, right? It's the common people that get to go, hey, sure. I like what you do. I want to support you. Here's $5 a month. Here's whatever it is.
The thing is that they're very cheap. I mean, $7, $5 a month, and you get a little bit of something for that the freebies don't get. But it has a good reach. It's very accessible. It's very easy to load stuff onto. So I think Substack is going to be one of the key marketing tools in the next few years.
For sure. I think it could blow up. I think that could be the next kind of YouTube kind of thing that blows up here. So we'll see.
I know you have, I think 80 or 81 chapters in Pirates. Are you going to do a chapter a week?
I'm going to do a chapter a week. Yeah. So I'll announce it here now. I mean, for when that shows up, anyways. But I'll have an official announcement out of it. But the plan is that it's going to be 2 books, and I forget, it's 82 chapters I think total. But I'll break it up into 2. But I'm going to start doing once a week on Substack in May. And so everyone get on there, and then I'll get the ebook and the paperback up at some point, and then if you want to get it early, you can all get it early, and then go from there. But I think it's really cool, and that's what when we were talking about all of the different things, right? It's that maybe it doesn't fit so neatly into because I get that a publisher needs a book size thing and they want it to make this amount of money, right? I worked medical devices for a long time, as you need them to make this amount of money. You need to do this. But art doesn't always work perfectly that way. So, and as I went back and kind of researching things, I was talked about just a few of them, but there's even more that it was like, oh, this actually, maybe this was really the way it was meant to be. I need to put this out and then just get it out there and let people read it and go from there. It's also satire, so I didn't want to be neutered by anything. I didn't want to be neutered by a company trying to meet something or this or that. Like, I'm purposely satirizing things. You need to have a sense of humor with it, but then also you need to realize that, like, oh, if it says this, I actually might mean the opposite. Right, like I'm actually pointing this out by going to this extreme. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of this, right? And that's hard when you're trying to be politically correct and things. And then sometimes just in a corporate world, that's what you need. So it's going to be fun. But
I think serializing is an excellent tactic. I really think that's going to work for you. I'm excited for you.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, and I know we're getting close on time here. So, anything else? We've been at it for about 2 hours. So, it feels like nothing more than 1 hour and 58 minutes. But anything else?
I have something to say, and it's for if there are writers out here who are listening to us. Take heart and write your hearts out. I mean, all the things we've been talking about are secondary to the joy and the amazingness of writing a great story. So that's your first job. And all of this stuff is following in its footsteps, but right.
Right.
Story is what matters. You like the story, just go for it. It's a labor of love.
It is.
Writing, nobody, some people get rich writing, but most of us don't. We do it because we love it. We love books. We love stories. This is what we want to do. So if you love it, just go for it,
Sure. Well, there's a certain beauty in that too, is that if there was riches, you would get people searching for riches all the time, right? And like that could be okay, but you probably actually won't get the best stories that way. I think sometimes the fact that it is so hard, that it is such a Sisyphean, just pushing the boulder up, that's actually what makes it worth it. And that actually makes the writers coming up worth your time even more. So
absolutely.
Dario, any final words?
Any windy words? The best bit of writing advice I ever had is be audacious. And I think that's really important, because quite apart from the self-censorship and self-doubt and trying to please everybody, please don't try to please everybody. You got to take chances. You've got to take chances. Michelangelo made David a lot larger than life. He wasn't life size. The statue is fucking huge. And that's what you need to do. You need to take chances and be audacious. If you've got to pull it down a bit, you can do that during the rewrite, but write your heart out, as people have said. Yeah.
Amen. Oh, and you know what? I did forget one thing. I wanted to do our toast of the week, because this is a new thing I wanted to do, which was, anyone have any toast for any writers or any this? I'm going to say writers, but this could be also just for family members, whatever you want. Anyone you want to toast to end the show here, just a attaboy kind of stuff. Diane, do you want to take us?
I do. I want to commend Michelle Morris, who has been writing her heart out, multiple books, and working on starting a startup of her own line of books. Women's fiction, it's wonderful. She is taking a huge chance, and I wish her the very best of luck, and I think she's going to be a huge success.
Very good, very good. Thank you for that. So Lou, you said it was, what was her name again?
Michelle Morris.
Michelle Morris. So Lou, to you.
Hey, Michelle.
Dario, Janice, you guys have anyone? Or I tried to mention it in the last email, but it was something I thought of last week or so. So
I know. Actually, for me, I'm just going to send out a toast for kind of multiple people, but I'm toasting my crit partners in my crit group, who I would be completely lost without. So like Christina Farley, Sarah McGuire, Juliet Wade, Nancy Cohen, and Ann Meyer. You guys rock. I'd be lost without you. So that's
very good. Janice's critique group, salute to you. And I'm a method host, so all of this is real drinks. So Dario, you got us from there?
I know. I used up.
Bill, I'm going to toast you, because you do such an amazing job on this. I've been trying to get you to let me interview you, or let us interview you, because
sure.
You're worth interviewing, and you've got a lot of interesting things to say, and you're a hell of a writer, but you've built something amazing with this series, and I really enjoy being part of it, and you have created a community, and you're a damn good writer and a good friend, so here's to you, man.
Salute.
Yeah, awesome. Salute to you, Dario. I can't salute to myself, but salute to you.
Grazie.
Thank you so much for that. And actually, I'll hit you up on that. I was thinking about the I know you brought that idea up of switching the tides on me. So I'll email you here this week about that. But I wanted to give one. So I had a guest who hasn't been officially on the show yet, but started his own YouTube channel. Rohan O'Doul. Started his own YouTube channel now, where he had a Substack where he was doing first chapter reads, sci-fi writer, Irish guy. I forget where he is in Ireland exactly, but came on the show. Was super great. I can't wait. He probably won't be out until June. Actually, I'm lying. Probably July, end of July here, if I remember right. But started off his own channel, his own journey here on the YouTube box. But I think he's trying to do it the right way. And give something back to everyone and give part of himself to it. So wanted to give him a shout out. So Rowan, thanks so much for being on the show, and salute to you, sir.
Salute.
Salute. So awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, again for being on the show. It was a blast as always. Always appreciate each and every one of you. It's always fun, and I like the sauce too, so that helps. But your charming personalities are what helps the most. So thanks so much.